Magic against Bird, because really they never really guarded each other, much, but just the fact that they were on the court was a rivalry because they wanted to beat each other so bad.
If I'm going to start my guy with a team with a point guard or a center, I have to go with Magic Johnson because now I can plug any 2, 3, 4, 5 with a Magic Johnson and we'll have a chance to win.
I think Bird and Magic saved the league.
Some rivalries are just about basketball, but the one between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, it changed the entire NBA. These two didn't just play the game, they elevated it. When the league was struggling, when arenas weren't even full, it was Larry and Magic who brought it back to life. Bird, the tough, trash-talking forward from Indiana, didn't look flashy, but he made the game bend to his will. He couldn't jump over you, so he outsmarted you. He'd tell you what shot he was about to make, then make it anyway, and let you hear about it all the way back down the floor. Then there was Magic, a 6'9" point guard who moved like a dancer and saw the court like a chess master. He smiled a lot. He loved the game. But that smile was dangerous. Behind it was a mind working 3 plays ahead, pulling strings like a puppet master. Magic didn't just win. He made his team look like a highlight reel. Together, they weren't just rivals. They were the heartbeat of a league that desperately needed saving. And now, years later, their names still echo through the halls of greatness. But the difficult question still remains. Who was the better player? As a core part of the Showtime Lakers, Byron Scott didn't just know Magic Johnson. He followed him. Magic was the floor general, the leader, the one who set the tone before the tip-off. Scott watched how Magic could flip the energy of a game without scoring a point. One possession, it was a full-speed fast break. The next, it was a no-look dime. And suddenly, the game was in the palm of their hands. Being around Magic was like being plugged into a system that ran smoother because of him.
And those two guys were just totally different players from totally different spectrums of the world, basically, and they just had a different style, which I thought was the thing that was the most compelling, is that everybody wanted to see us play them because they were the hard-nosed, tough, East Coast type team that used the pass to kind of run their fast break, and we were the Showtime tuxedo wearing, just run up and down. It was just two different styles. So I thought it was interesting that you had, Magic against Bird, because really they never really guarded each other, much, but just the fact that they were on the court was a rivalry because they wanted to beat each other so bad.
Byron also played against Bird and respected the intensity he brought. He remembered how Larry's game wasn't built on speed or athleticism, but on timing, angles, and control. There was never any panic. Bird played the long game, waited for mistakes, and made you pay. But for Byron, the difference was felt daily. He saw Magic elevate a team in ways most point guards couldn't dream of. In his mind, Bird was great, but Magic was the one pulling the strings behind an entire dynasty. When Charles Barkley entered the league, it was already clear that Larry Bird and Magic Johnson weren't just great players. They were the reason the league had become what it was. Barkley came into an NBA that was growing fast, with packed arenas, major TV deals, and players starting to become stars off the court. And he knew that Bird and Magic were a big reason why that happened. They weren't just winning games, they were building the NBA into a business, a place where players could build legacies and earn real money doing what they loved.
Magic Johnson and Larry Bird are the two most important figures in NBA history. I remember the first time Magic, when he made $1 million, we were going around high-fiving each other. We couldn't believe an NBA player made $1 million. And it's all because of Magic and Bird, who changed the whole dynamic of the league. Mm-hmm. So every time I see those guys, I want them to know, man, thank you.
On the court, Barkley had his hands full with both of them. Bird made everything personal. He didn't care who you were. He came to compete. And he didn't just beat you. He made sure you knew how and why you lost. Magic, meanwhile, brought something different. His game was about connection, running the show, making teammates better, keeping everything moving. But off the court, both players showed that basketball could be more than just a game. Barkley and his generation benefited from that. Paul Pierce grew up watching both Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and by the time he got to the league, their legacies were already cemented. He didn't face either in their prime, but their influence was everywhere. For Pierce, Bird felt more familiar. The way he played with patience, footwork, and confidence reminded Paul of how he approached the game itself. Bird didn't rely on speed or verticality. He relied on knowing where and what to do. That approach left a big impression on Pierce, especially as he grew into the role of a go-to scorer and leader for the Celtics.
It was just like a battle of, who was the better, the styles. Bird was slow, could shoot the jumper. Magic was fast, can pass. And it was just like, this guy Bird, him being a white player, because we always felt like, this is a black sport, and so you're seeing a guy like Bird coming in and dominate. And it was just like, whoa, this is something that could last a long time. It started with them two in college.
Yeah.
So it was like all kind of subplots with this rivalry just throughout the whole 80s decade. And it was just like, whose side are you on?
On the other hand, Magic had a presence that felt bigger than basketball. Watching Magic wasn't just about what he did on the court, it was about the way he made the game feel. He brought joy to the floor, but also had a seriousness about winning that players like Pierce could really respect. Pierce understood how hard it was to lead a team year after year, and seeing how Magic did it, with consistency and unselfishness, left its mark. In the end, Pierce leaned toward Bird because of that connection he felt to his style. But there was no ignoring how much Magic influenced the game around him. Chris Webber came into the league not long after Bird and Magic had stepped away, but he spent his college and early pro years watching their tapes, studying their movements, and trying to understand what made them different. Bird stood out right away. His game didn't rely on flash. It was about doing the right thing, at the right time, over and over. Webber admired that. It wasn't about highlights, it was about winning. And the more he watched, the more he realized Bird didn't just play well. He made his opponents uncomfortable. He played like he already knew what you were about to do.
And when I think of Magic Johnson, if I'm starting my team with the point guard that sat in the captain's chair and played center in every position in the game in the championship, there's no way I'm going against Magic. I have help defenders that can probably help. You look at all these guys are great, but you look at the first few years of all these guys, they all had great Hall of Famers, and maybe Mike didn't have that in the beginning, but to me, the one thing is Magic, being the leader that he is. One thing that is, maybe it is up for question, but Magic to me in the history of the game is one of the best leaders from what you've seen in his getting people energized, getting the crowd energized, the style of play. You ever notice when they scored how fast Magic Johnson got the ball up to half court? Those are Showtime things, but you're setting up the play with 20 seconds on the clock, and just him getting everybody involved, knowing what buttons to push.
When it came to Magic, Webber saw something else entirely. Magic was a leader and could elevate those around him. He could see how Magic made the game look easy, and as someone who valued passing and playmaking himself, that left an impression. For Webber, Bird was the kind of player you feared for how efficient and serious he was. Magic was the kind you admired for how easily he took over the game. And if you were building a team, it really came down to what kind of energy you wanted. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't just play with Magic Johnson. They built something together, and that experience shaped the way Kareem saw team basketball. Magic brought people together on the court. He didn't force the game, he organized it. For Kareem, playing with someone who always knew where everyone needed to be made things smoother. However, he couldn't stop himself from praising his once rival, Larry Bird, going on about how special of a player Bird was for his time.
I remember the game he played against the Lakers the first year that the Celtics won the World Championship with him on the team. And he was ridiculous. He came on here. I remember our sportscaster played the Superman theme when he was talking about him that night after the game, because he did everything: points, rebounds, assists, just steals, you name it. Larry has such a great mind for the game, and a great touch. I had a lot of respect for him as a competitor.
But Kareem also had plenty of battles with Bird. He knew Bird wasn't going to be outworked or intimidated. He respected the way Bird did it all. Bird's understanding of the game was elite, and something not a lot of players had. Kareem always saw Bird as one of the most dangerous players to face, especially in pressure moments. Still, Kareem's experience playing next to Magic gave him a different kind of appreciation, not just for talent, but for leadership. Phil Jackson didn't coach Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, but he coached against them, and more importantly, he prepared teams to try and stop them. As someone who's known for his attention to detail and deep understanding of the game, Phil saw Bird and Magic through the lens of strategy. When it came to Larry, Phil always had to factor in the little things, the angles he used, the way he moved off the ball, and how quickly he could punish a mistake. Bird wasn't the kind of player you could cheat against. If your defense slipped even slightly, he'd take advantage without hesitation.
Larry Bird, Magic Johnson.
Wow. Well, Magic's got a post-up game. Larry had a good post-up game, too. But Larry was an outside step-back shooter. He had a great shot, and I think I'd probably go with Larry. He's probably the better one.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
What did I say? I knew Larry.
With Bird, the danger was constant. He wasn't just smart, he was deadly. If he had a window, even a small one, he'd take the shot. And most of the time, it went in. Bird didn't need space, he just needed balance. That jump shot was smooth, consistent, and confident, and when he got going, there wasn't much a defense could do but hope. For Phil, both players demanded your full attention. Bird because of how quickly he could score, and Magic because of how easily he could take the game out of your hands. Shaq didn't get to face Bird or Magic at their peak, but he grew up watching them and eventually joined the Lakers, where Magic's shadow still loomed large. As someone who became one of the most dominant forces the league had ever seen, Shaq had a deep respect for how Magic used his size in a totally different way. Magic was 6'9", but he played like a point guard, running the offense, setting people up, and doing it all with ease. That kind of versatility wasn't normal, especially back then. Shaq saw that and knew Magic was ahead of his time.
For me, it would have to be Magic Johnson, because if you look at the traditional point guard, they've always been not small, but smaller. Magic was the first oversized guy that excelled at being a point guard. He actually gave Chris and myself the confidence to be able to get the ball, take it off the glass, and go all the way. I actually used to hate Larry Bird. I hated him. Because,
well, why?
Because not hate him, I was sort of jealous of him, because he was a regular guy that did everything. He shot it in your face, he had to fade away. One time, I was watching a game, they was playing somebody, and I was betting this guy, and he was falling out of bounds, and he shot that thing over the backboard and it went in. I was like, I thought most of what he did was luck, but as I, got older and kept watching, I just knew that it was skill. And, for him to even have his name mentioned in this category with Magic and Michael Jordan just shows how great of a player he was.
Shaq also had plenty to say about Bird. What stood out to him was how tough Bird was. He wasn't flashy or loud, but he was relentless. He played through pain, challenged anyone in front of him, and never backed down. Shaq could relate to that kind of mental toughness. In the end, he saw both players as unique, but Magic held a special place in Laker history and in Shaq's own understanding of leadership. Magic didn't dominate with strength. He did it with awareness and trust. Steve Smith was part of the next generation after Bird and Magic, but he still caught glimpses of both before they left the game. And more importantly, he played with and against players who were shaped by them. When he watched Bird, what stood out wasn't the stats, it was the poise. Larry always looked like he had seen the play before it happened. He didn't rush, he didn't react, he just executed. For a guy like Smith, who valued timing and positioning, that approach made a big impact.
But just to talk about Larry, for me to see the guy who can shoot the basketball, but then also be able to change his game up, but to do whatever he had to do to win. You know, kind of like Magic, kind of like Michael, but, you know, I was impressed for a guy with his athletic ability, which was not a lot, to be able to rebound the basketball, to really take the fundamentals of the game and take it to another level. I mean, everything fundamentally, if you watch Larry Bird, he did at a top level. I mean, but if I had to pick, because I started my team always with a center and a point guard. So taking nothing away from Michael. We all know he's the greatest player, but if I'm gonna start my guy with a team with a point guard or a center, I have to go with Magic Johnson, because now I can plug any 2, 3, 4, 5 with a Magic Johnson and we'll have a chance to win.
Smith saw how Magic raised the bar for what it meant to lead a team. Magic wasn't just a star. He was the kind of player you could build an entire franchise around and know it would run smoothly. Bird, on the other hand, was one of the smartest, toughest competitors Smith had ever seen. A closer, a thinker, someone who finished plays with precision. But when it came to who you'd want as the foundation of a team, Smith saw Magic as the complete package. Talent, leadership, and chemistry all in one. For Isaiah Thomas, facing Larry Bird and Magic Johnson wasn't just about stopping two great players. It was about going up against two forces that were shaping the culture of basketball in real time. During the 1980s, everything about the league was changing. The games were getting bigger, the spotlight brighter, and the pressure heavier. And at the center of all that were Bird and Magic. Their rivalry wasn't just entertaining, it became the heartbeat of the NBA. It was Celtics versus Lakers, East versus West. Two different styles and backgrounds colliding every time they met. And that energy, that anticipation, reached far beyond the court.
I think Bird and Magic saved the league. Bird and Magic, you know, what the NBA was coming out of in the 70s. And how the United States was. I mean, we have to talk about that now. How the United States was for black men in the 70s. And then Bird and Magic being on the stage in the early 80s, coming out of college and then, you know, playing that game again. Magic coming to LA, Bird going to Boston. You know, they walked into culture. They walked into a foundation. They walked into a way of being. They walked into winning.
In Isaiah's eyes, Bird and Magic didn't just compete. They changed the tone of the entire league. Their rivalry raised the standard, made every game feel bigger, and helped turn the NBA into a global movement. Players didn't just want to beat them. They wanted to live up to what they represented. In his eyes, Bird and Magic didn't just win titles. They changed how players saw the game, how fans connected to it, and how basketball became a major piece of global culture. Ask the legends who was better, Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, and you'll get different answers. Some saw Bird as the ultimate competitor, someone who could beat you with skill, timing, and toughness. Others saw Magic as the perfect leader, someone who made the game easier for everyone and controlled it without needing to score. But the truth is, both left something bigger than numbers. Bird showed that confidence and preparation could beat almost anything. Magic showed that joy, vision, and leadership could define a team. And together, they didn't just win. They raised the standard for what greatness looked like. The truth is, there's no wrong answer. And maybe that's the point. Maybe what made Bird and Magic so special wasn't that one was better than the other, but that together they brought out the best in the game, in their teams, and in each other. That's why players still talk about them. That's why their names still matter. And that's why this debate will never really end.